and welcome back to the Give and Go. I'm your coach Reynoso here with my boy
Soltero. What's up, y'all?
Champions, baby. Champions for the first time in this podcast history. I can say proudly that Mexico are Nations League champions, ending the 3-year run that America, the USA, was on. Mexico does it at the hands of Raul Jimenez, who continues his magnificent story, getting a brace in the file, be it not a very pretty game for the Mexican team, and not a pretty game for the Panamanians either, but a game that ultimately sees Mexico come out victorious against this Panama side that tried their best but just couldn't hold off until the final minute where they got that penalty to win the match. And Raul Jimenez seals it 2-1. Mexico campeones, my friend.
What an ugly handball, though, to concede. For Panama, who fought so hard in this match, they equalized right before the half, getting a penalty themselves to make it 1-1, and they just fight for the entirety of that second half. And for once, going into the 90th minute, for once, I was like, no way. Panama are going to make the Mexicans sweat. They're going to make them really work for this, maybe push this to penalties. And at that point, maybe we would have seen Panama lift their first trophy since 1951.
1951.
But instead, Cordoba, with one of the wackiest...
Idiotic, man.
I think it's lazy, idiotic, clumsy handballs I think I've ever seen. I understand the ball, it's coming fast, it's looping, but there's no real contact on him. He's not being pushed. He knows the players behind him. He knows he's not going to get to the ball with his head. He keeps his hand outstretched, and it's clear contact. It's a penalty. But, bro, like... that's how you lose this game? That kills me. That hurts me. And just for Panama, they've worked so hard for 90 minutes. It's just the worst way to go out. It really is. Nothing against Mexico here, but yeah, what a terrible move from Cordoba, who had been actually fantastic, not just in this game, but all Nations League in both matches, man. Cordoba was amazing, and he'll continue to be a very important center back for Panama, but what a disaster for Cordoba specifically.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, that is the game-deciding play. It really is, because the way this game started, the first 30 minutes, I thought was just so clear that Mexico had that mental edge over Panama, the way they came out, getting that early goal at what was with another mistake, I would say, from the Panamanian goalkeeper and the defender not really communicating. Raul Jimenez at the end of it makes it 1-0 with a really nice clinical header there. And we looked good for about the next 15, 20 minutes until the last 5 minutes of that first half. Panama really started to kind of impose themselves, and they got that deserved penalty to make it 1-1. What came in the second half, though, was Mexico trying to turn it back on a little bit more, getting on the ball a little bit more, possessing it more, and trying to inflict damage on Panama's defense, though we really couldn't generate something clear, bro. We really couldn't. And so I do call that the game-defining moment, because the way the entire match had transpired, I think, was building up to just one team making a big mistake. We really couldn't break each other's defenses apart and create a clear opportunity for either side. It was the defender, Cordoba's incredibly bad mistake that ultimately gave Mexico the opportunity. And when you got Raul Jimenez stepping up, who apparently has only missed one penalty in his entire career, I mean, it's not looking very good, bro. And he absolutely puts it into the back of the net. Yeah. We take the lead, and we weren't giving it back afterwards. Mexico ends up on top. But it kind of goes to my sentiment that this wasn't a pretty win, I would say, for Mexico. Not the way that we soundly defeated Canada. This was a nitty-gritty result that ultimately, with that pressure we put in the second half, saw rewarded with the penalty call.
Yeah, and I think just in general, though, for Mexico, this is completely deserved. You take a step back, you look at CONCACAF as a region. I think right now, in this moment, a year out from the 2026 World Cup, Mexico are the best team in CONCACAF. And, you know, we can maybe dissect a little bit what that means, because I think the peak of CONCACAF isn't as good as it was, let's say, in 2014. Hell, even in 2018. Even 2022 wasn't that bad with the USA getting out of the group stage.
2014 was crazy, man.
Yeah, this is crazy for CONCACAF.
Costa Rica, Mexico could have gone to the quarterfinals, almost, you know. Netherlands happens, and then USA always being a feisty team in the World Cup.
Exactly. And we look at it now, Mexico, not just by winning this, but I think the way that they've been playing under Aguirre for the last, let's just say year, they are the best team in CONCACAF. But I look at it, and I'm just worried for CONCACAF in general at the World Cup, because I just don't see Mexico really beating an elite team. I don't think it's going to be possible with the way that they're playing because they could barely beat Panama. It was a really ugly win in this finals. And I think just credit to Panama for just being very solid defensively, but I wish I saw more from Mexico in that second half. I wish Aguirre would have made a little bit more offensive changes early on in that second half to really go for it. But this is Aguirre ball. It gets the result so far, and we said after the semifinal match, it's the emphasis is defense first, and that's exactly what we saw today. But I actually do think it's a good thing that Mexico are defending first. No matter what the situation is, no matter who the opponent is, Mexico's defending first. Yeah. And I think the consistency is what's really important here. They're establishing their identity, but man, I just wish there's a little bit more offensively. I really do just wish from a fan perspective, I don't think we're really going to get it, which is why I'm saying I don't think the best of CONCACAF is going to do that well in 2026. But overall, Mexico is the best team in CONCACAF, and they did it here by beating Panama. I just wish there's a little more offensively.
But that's the sentiment I get from most Mexico fans that I've been talking to in the build-up to this game. You know, everyone's proud of the defense-first approach, especially when you look at the players like on a team sheet. It's like we have to be defensive. Like we just don't have the creative talent. Yeah. We don't have the offensive consistency outside of Raul Jimenez to really rely on us to create chances time and time again, the way we did back in 2018 with Chicharito, Vela, or Giovanni Dos Santos back in 2014. Like we had such offensive threats,
even
not just with the
young Lozano.
Young Lozano as well. We had much more threatening players. Pablo Barrera at one point was actually very threatening offensively too. Like we had exciting talent. I don't think we have that now. So because of that, we have to be defense first. And it's funny because this was the first game, I think, in this Mexico, or at least in Aguirre's tenure, where I felt myself going into the match not really expecting any of that offensive ability. Not really expecting, more than one or two chances to score a goal. Even if it is against a lowly Panama side, we still couldn't really generate much. And ultimately, just like in that Canada game, relied on the opponent making a mistake and taking advantage of that. I asked the question, and so do many other fans that I talked to this past week, how far can that take us? Do we get the same result of a round of 16 World Cup exit, or is it somehow, some way, the way that we finally break through and make it to a quarterfinal matchup in the World Cup by playing a defense-first heavy game plan? I mean, I just don't think we'll be able to get the full answer until the World Cup comes, man. But that's what's being set up for us, and I'm on board with it because it's something different, and I do think it's ultimately the most that we can make out of this specific squad.
Yeah, the good news is this is what Morocco did in 2022. They were a purely counterattacking side. Now, the difference is that they had Ziyech. They had better wingers as well. Exactly.
Midfield too.
So their offense was just more electric, but they were defense first. They're a very physical side. That's what Mexico's trying to repeat, essentially. They're trying to be very physical, basically be unstoppable defensively. And let's put credit there as well today. I mean, outside of the penalty for Panama, they themselves didn't really generate anything. They had a couple of interesting counters where maybe Mexico could have gotten caught out, but there were big moments with Cesar Montes tracking back, putting in some big tackles. What a performance from him. And Malagon as well, who's, new to the starting goalkeeper position for Mexico, and he's been very comfortable.
Ready, dude. He seems ready.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think defensively, the players are showing up for Mexico. That's why I want to really highlight this defensive consistency, because this is where Mexico's going to get the wins, going to get the results. It's just not going to look as pretty as maybe we'd like, for sure.
Yeah, we just got to stop reaching for high balls in the fucking box, dude. Jesus Christ, it's becoming a trend now. Be more cautious of that. But you know who I actually compare this Mexican team to in terms of like on the international stage, who they remind me of? 2018 Iran. Side that got put in the group of death with Portugal, Spain. I can't remember that fourth team. Remember who it was?
Portugal, Spain, Morocco. It was Morocco.
It was Morocco, right? Before
the
crazy run. It was a tough group.
Yeah.
And I remember they didn't make it out. But, man, they kept every game so close because they played an incredible park the bus type of ball.
Yeah.
Who was their head coach? Quiros, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just remember that team being so good defensively and then trying to find that offensive success. They ultimately couldn't, but I feel like that's Mexico, man. Maybe with a little bit better quality, though. in terms of offensive talent with Raul Jimenez. I don't know if Iran had the equivalent at the time, but that's why I get hesitant about how far can we actually go, because they got grouped. Granted, the group stage is different nowadays.
That's
it's a group of three.
Though, man. I mean, Iran, I like Iran as a national team. They have great players. When they're on it, their system works, as you just highlighted. They did the very best that they could in that group of death, but they didn't get out.
Bro.
You look at their Asian Cup performances.
But they made it.
You look at their Asian Cup performances. They can't even make a final in their own confederation, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's why I'm hesitant as well. I think the peak of CONCACAF is not where it should be at all.
But they weren't at home.
What are you talking about?
Iran wasn't at home at the World Cup. That's the X factor.
That is the X factor. And actually, I'm glad you brought this up, because going into the 2018 World Cup, nobody had Russia doing anything. Nobody had Russia doing anything, bro. Man. And then we saw the rise of Denis Cheryshev out of nowhere, bro. Yeah. So it is a genuine point to bring up, the X factor of hosting. Mexico is going to host all their group stage games. If they make it in first place, they're going to have their first 2 knockout games in Mexico as well. So that's potentially 5
crazy.
Games in Mexico. So I'm actually with you on this. I think the home edge is going to play a factor. It's going to propel Mexico to a higher place. And my God, we all need that.
That's why
we all need that. But the base that Aguirre is laying right now, it's a good one.
And that's why ultimately, I do understand the criticisms that people have of the team and what they're seeing on the pitch. But I think what we should be aiming for is to be just good enough to then have that X factor be added on top of our level to make us then a quarterfinal team at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Which I think is very doable, man. I think it's very achievable if you really think about the impact that especially Mexican fans have on the performance of the team and playing at home in these big games. Yeah. We could generate something magical with that foundation. And I think that foundation is being set right now after winning the CONCACAF Nations League. So I'm very excited with what I'm seeing from Mexico ultimately. Though it wasn't pretty, we got the results. And as I mentioned last episode, results are very important in CONCACAF. Yeah. One way or another, Aguirre did it. He's done an incredible job since he took over for his Mexican team. And I think things are looking very promising as of right now. And I'm just thankful, man. I'm thankful that finally, we conquered that demon of the past 4 years of USA dominating this tournament, dominating this region, and have been able to at least step up to that level and say that we are the best in CONCACAF for once in such a long time, man.
Yeah, and looking at the squad under Aguirre, I think it's basically being shaped to where we have at least 7-8 players that are going to be starting in a year's time. Specifically, I want to highlight Montes and Vasquez. They are the core. They're the heartbeat of this team. Without these 2 center backs, Mexico, I think, will struggle. They are the identity of this team, and they've been fantastic when they play, especially Montes today. Oh my God, man. An absolute beast at the back. Reyes, I'm really liking in that right back position, man. I think if he just keeps working, especially at club level, he's going to be the starting right back for Mexico. He's a beast on that side, just running up and down. He's pretty decent offensively, but anything he lacks offensively, he makes up for it defensively. So I'm completely fine with Reyes's attributes for this side. In the midfield, Edson Alvarez, dominant. I love the way he plays. The defensive attributes he brings on top of Montes and Vasquez, it just adds to that defensive identity. And then, of course, we already talked about Raul Jimenez. Alvarado has really surprised me as well. He is really coming into his own. And I think if he just continues this specific form, he's going to be starting for Mexico at the World Cup. Couple of positions that I would just like to see maybe a little bit more. It's that left side where Chino Huerta played, where Vega played in the semifinal. I just think it lacks there, man. Alvaredo's really finding his way by not really being an out-and-out winger. He's trying to be a little bit more creative. I think that's what the other side needs to do as well, because Mexico right now, we just don't have pace. We don't have pacey players, so we need to accent that creative side more. It's just not really there, though, with a lot of our player personnel. And then Santi Jimenez, man, is he going to be the starter alongside Raul? What's your thoughts on having 2 strikers up top? Raul's obviously the guy. Do you like Santi being that secondary striker?
We should, and we are going to have 2 strikers up top. Jimenez or Quiñones is the question, though.
Dude, Quiñones doesn't even play, man.
I know.
I've given up on that.
Injuries can happen. Injuries can happen. The guys can control it. Maybe they want Quiñones, bro, because I think the conversation has to be Santi Jimenez or Julian Quiñones who gets that starting nod, because right now Jimenez now has the trust of Javier Aguirre and of the Mexican people.
Right.
But I still leave myself wanting more out of him on the international stage, bro.
He just can't score.
He just can't score.
He can't score. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because it'll especially in these international stages, man. We've seen it time and time again. It doesn't really matter what happens at club. If there's patterns recurring with your national team, it's not going to go away at the World Cup. So I'm going to get scared if Santi finally gets his chance at the World Cup. I'm not going to have faith he's going to make it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have that faith.
Yeah.
Raul, he's going to score some screamers for Mexico. But if Santi gets a chance, I'm worried.
Yeah.
I'm going to be worried because he just doesn't have the reps.
Nah.
Not with Mexico. He never has had the reps for Mexico. He does not score when he puts on this jersey.
Yeah, and so that's why I would love to see Quiñones get a full 90, get the opportunity as well. He's been scoring in Saudi Arabia right now. But I don't know. I guess at the very least, Aguirre is looking to give Santi Jimenez that consistency, though it hasn't resulted in much. He is getting the opportunity now. And I remember under Tata Martino, under Diego Coca, under Jimmy Lozano, it was the same criticism of Jimenez just wasn't getting enough opportunity. We can't say that Aguirre isn't doing that now. He definitely is. I'm just let down a little bit with what I'm seeing so far. So because of that, give me Quiñones in that spot to just see what he can cook up. And if he ends up doing the same thing, then go Santi Jimenez because of the age and the potential.
Yeah, exactly.
My question for you is, who should be that pairing midfielder with Edson Alvarez? Because Charlie Rodriguez started last game, didn't start in this one. Instead, you got Luis Romo playing in that position. And for as good as he can be at times, I do think he isn't at the level of Edson Alvarez and also leaves a little bit more to be wanted there. Yeah. Is it a Luis Chavez type of situation? Is it, I don't know, any other midfield that could potentially be promising for Mexico? Who should be put there alongside Edson Alvarez in the midfield?
I just wish Mexico had a go-to passer. A guy who can get on the ball in the center of the pitch, be calm, remain composed, and distribute the ball. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist. Edson does it, but from a very deep position. That's different. I'm asking for a player to do it higher up the pitch in tighter situations. We don't have that player. So I think that's why right now we see Aguirre rotate out this midfielder. It's Charlie one game, it's Romo the next, and then it's Chavez coming off the bench in both situations. I don't think Aguirre knows who that coupled midfielder is right now. Who I would like to see, I guess out of the options right now, I guess Romo, because I think he is almost as good as Charlie box to box defensively, but I think he's a better passer than Charlie. Not by much though. That's the problem. I wish we had basically like a Carrasquilla. I wish we had a Coco Carrasquilla Mexicanized and playing right alongside Edson Alvarez. I think that would be the perfect type of player because he's not too creative. He's not too offensive, Coco, but he's got flair. He's got the eye for that pass. There's not really a midfielder in Mexico right now who's got that style of play, so we're left with Romo or Charlie. Yeah,
and they're mainly ultimately defensive players. I know Orbelín Pineda has been tried out in that spot, but he isn't as efficient, as consistent as you would want him to be. And I think he got that opportunity at the Copa America, actually, and then ultimately let us down. So he might be out of the question here, too.
Yeah, I was actually really excited to see Pineda get the opportunity at the Copa, but it didn't work. It didn't work at all. He couldn't get onto the ball. When he did, he just wasn't effective whatsoever. And I think it's why Aguirre is just doubling down. Let's just put defensive midfielders and let's defend, boys.
If you could guess, as of right now in this moment, just so we can archive it, have it in the files, how far does Mexico go at the World Cup 1 year out, basically? How far do they go? 2026 FIFA World Cup, Mexico eliminated or victorious in the biggest tournament in the world.
So group stage, but then remember, it's not round of 16 now, it's round of 32. So I think they'll get past the round of 32, and I think they will lose in the round of 16. Yeah. Now,
I sorry.
The good news is maybe because the tournament's so big now, when you get to the round of 16, maybe you can get a really favorable matchup.
Right.
If that is the case, then I can see Mexico going to the quarters. They're not going past the quarters, though. There's absolutely no way. But I'm just going to assume they get an average round of 16 team. If that happens, they're not getting past it, man.
I think that could be big, though, because I feel like the big reason for why Mexico has been able to get into quarterfinal matchups because we actually have had some tough round of 16 matchups. 2014 was
True.
Netherlands, who went on to go all the way to semifinal and lose to Argentina. 2018 was a Brazilian team that was just way better than us and just dominated us. 2022, we know what happened. But if we could get a weaker version of a round of 16 team versus what we faced in the past, I wouldn't put it that out of question that we make it to the quarterfinal. Here's my thing, though. I'm still not at the place where I can dream like that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We're getting the results. I like what we're doing, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because of how low we've been lately. I don't want that to mess with my perception of this Mexican team. I don't see us as a quarterfinal level type team yet. Potentially, if we better ourselves, if we just continue getting more results, if we continue that momentum, everyone keeps getting better at club level, perhaps then. But as of right now, I agree. Round of 16, but putting up a great fight and at least putting in a performance of a team that you can be proud about as a Mexican, which we did not have in 2022.
And I want to extend this out to the rest of CONCACAF.
Talk to him.
I don't think there is a CONCACAF team that can get past the round of 16. I'm not just applying this to Mexico, man. Like Canada, what we've seen from them over the last year, though it has been good, though it has been promising, I think round of 16 is as far as they go. And the USA, with the worst form they've been in 4 years, I think round of 16 is our max right now. It's our absolute max. So, yeah, I mean, I could see if the USA don't pick up form, they get a tricky opponent round of 32. They're gone, man.
Yeah.
Like, they're gone. It's not going to happen. Well, yeah. The host factor, I do think, can do something. Pulisic knows, like, this is the only opportunity he's going to have to be in his prime, play for his country, in his home country hosting the World Cup.
No.
What an opportunity. I think Anthony Robinson, all these big-time players, Weston McKennie, they will realize that, and I think they will play their hearts out. I do not doubt that, even though we're not seeing that now. I just think that's the host magic that we've seen, kind of infiltrate South Africa even in their opening game. I think it is palpable. We've seen it happen time and time again. I do think it will affect the USA in a positive manner. I just still think no matter what, a CONCACAF team isn't getting past a round of 16 unless we get a favorable matchup or something drastic changes with the offensive schemes of both Mexico, Canada, or the U.S.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to see the vision. Of one team just kind of sliding through the crack. You'll have 4 or 5 CONCACAF teams in this tournament. I think ultimately, maybe even 6.
I think you have 6.
Yeah,
you have
a good
6.
amount.
You have the 3 hosts and then 3 others.
Can just one of them catch fire? Can just one of them get a weak matchup in that round of 32 and round of 16 and make it through? Like,
that's the thing.
It does happen.
It can. It definitely can.
It's basically March Madness at that point, round of 32.
It's
crazy
random
things can happen, but going in with the confidence that it will, that is what I agree with. So I'm with you on that aspect as well. And it actually kind of leads me to a comment I want to make about like attendance and what we saw today in regards to the U.S. national team, because I feel like they're getting criticized a lot for the lack of fans that are showing up to the stadium. But I also want to make it clear, when the USA plays at the 2026 FIFA World Cup, it's going to be fucking sold out.
Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind.
I don't see this impacting that, bro, because the vibes are going to be insane.
Yeah.
The USA, whether they're good or bad, are going to sell out their stadiums. I do think a big factor that played a role in what we saw this past week was 2 games being hosted in the same stadium. Yeah. And that ultimately impacting the ticket sales and who actually went to those games and for what reasons. The USA, with the way they've been playing, obviously are going to bring a lot of attention. But come World Cup time, I'm very confident that those tickets, we won't see an empty seat out there, I believe. Because I just think the magic of the World Cup, the potential, people wanting to represent their country, and then just, hearing about it now that it's fully arrived, people are gonna want to go to the biggest event in the world, especially when America plays in it. So just something I wanted to say on the side, because I don't want people to get carried away with the empty seats. USA is going to be sold out. Same for Mexico, same for Canada.
Exactly. We have to remind ourselves that CONCACAF is a weird region, bro. You have some of the smallest countries population-wise in the Caribbean mixed in with the passion of Central American countries, mixed in with the economic powerhouses of Mexico, USA, and Canada. Right? It's a crazy confederation that's all put together in one. And then the way that they host everything, it's weird. The USA are permanent hosts. Yeah. They host everything. Yeah. They host Mexico, they host Canada, they host themselves, they host Costa Rica, Honduras. And so you look at every other regions, they're playing home away. You know, they're rotating who's host. CONCACAF doesn't do that. So you get this weird attendance product where really the only fans you see more often than not is just Mexico fans. But that's not true. Like, if you hosted a game in Costa Rica, it'd be sold out for Costa Rica, hosting pretty much anybody. And that's what I wish CONCACAF would do sometimes, man. Like, imagine if this final was just like coin toss to who would get it, and it was hosted in Panama.
Damn.
That would be amazing.
That'd be crazy.
And it could have been because it's the CONCACAF Nations League. It's not the USA Nations League, bro. So I'm just like, it's just such a weird confederation sometimes. So we have to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah, poor Panama, man, playing an away game back-to-back times now, Gold Cup, and then here. Like, it's been tough. And so for them to make it a tight game, I thought was very impressive. And that's the last question I want to end the show with is, what do we prospect here for Panama specifically after what we saw this Nations League, the fact that they aren't one of the 4 teams that were involved in the Nations League that won't be qualifying automatically? Will they be at the World Cup? And if they are, what will they do? What do you see for this Panamanian squad?
I'm just so happy for him, man. Like I said, it was 90 minutes of perfect Panamanian football under Tomas Christensen. We already highlighted and praised him as a coach in the semifinal reaction. And I think going toe-to-toe with this Mexico side, the next best team in CONCACAF, 1-1 all the way into the 90th minute, that's something you have to be proud of, man. Panama have consistently played this way for the last 2 years. I think with this Nations League performance, beating the USA, barely losing to Mexico, they can now take all of this, their Copa America experience as well, going to the Gold Cup final 2 years ago also, they can take all of this and look back and be like, okay, let's just keep working, boys. Let's go all the way one more year out. Let's rinse and repeat. We know our identity. We have a assured back line with Fariña and Córdoba. Carlos Harvey today also was brilliant. I think he'll have a stake to start. You get Michael Murillo back. You get Edgar Bárcenas back. All of a sudden, your wings are a lot more deadly. You still keep Jose Luis El Puma Rodriguez, you have him. Coco Carrasquilla. Godoy was fantastic, even though he's like, 39 years old?
50 at this
Cristian Martinez, 2 great performances from him. He plies his trade in Asia, the Middle East. So I just think this team is so set for success given what they have, and I think they've just passed pretty much every single test. Now, obviously, they haven't gone all the way, and we've highlighted that Panamanian ceiling. Can they actually break it? Well, the answer is no, but hey, maybe they can do something special here in the States where there's a lot of Panamanians in this country, and Panama's not that far, bro. They can make that flight over, and I think they're going to show up for the World Cup. This is so promising for them. All of their players are in their prime, and they're just not letting up, bro. Yeah. They're not letting up. Every time they get on the pitch, they're giving 110%. And that's something that I can't say about my own country, the USA. So I think for Panama, man, though they did not win, this is a great result in performances that they put out.
Yeah, and you got to look at the context of where they stand right now in CONCACAF. Removing the 3 teams that are automatically qualifying to the World Cup, looking at Panama and the next best team in CONCACAF, I think it's a huge gap, bro.
Yeah.
It is massive. I mean, Panama was in the final of the Nations League, so they're a top 2, top 3 side in this region, in my opinion. Yeah. They have a big gap in between them and the next best team. I think that's a big sign. That's an accomplishment in of itself, because even when they qualified to the World Cup in 2018, I don't think that gap was that big at the time. They've been able to actually make it great and make it bigger. And Thomas Christensen himself, I do think, is a World Cup level coach with what he's shown us so far. All the players you already mentioned, I mean, they're on fire. Everyone has this really good attitude with the team, this pride in the nation as well that is on display every time they play. I think Panama is very, very exciting. You're right, man. Like, they basically will have the home factor going for them, especially if they face off against like an Asian side or an African side. It's going to be way more Panamanians in attendance, which will ultimately help them in getting a result in those games. So that's super exciting. I did not think about that. That's a big point right there that I think could push Panama to being a really cool underdog type team at the 2026 World Cup, because I do think they're going to make it pretty surefirely.
And just to have a remark on it, the USA did lose to Canada in the bronze match. I don't have anything to say here. Diego Luna had a nice little assist, sure. Jesse Marsh really showing his passion, trying to beat the USA. He gets a red card.
Tired of that guy, bro. You don't need to do all that.
I love it. No, he's got to beat the US.
He's doing too much,
He's got to beat him. And he did.
He did,
He did do it.
Yes, sir.
Jonathan David getting a really nice finish shortly after that red card, actually. giving Canada the 2-1 lead and ultimately the win. I just want to say this. If you want my emotional reaction to the USA's current form, go see the semifinal reaction. All I'm going to say is this. I think this CONCACAF Nations League is perfectly reflective of where each team is at. I think Mexico is the best team in CONCACAF right now. I think Panama and Canada are right there, right underneath them. And I think out of those three teams, the USA is below them.
Yeah.
The USA is the fourth best team in CONCACAF right now. It's been showing since the Copa America performances. We haven't fixed anything. I don't know what it is, whether it's mentality, formation, coaching decisions, whatever it is, the USA is getting it all wrong. And all I can do is hope that we somehow figure it out with 1 year left.
I guess, my only question after watching that game is just, is Poch here until the World Cup then? Like,
Dude,
after what we just saw, like, he hasn't won a game, basically, bro.
Basically.
And if he
struggled
stays
against
on
Jamaica.
after this, then I think that's the Federation saying, like, we're trusting Poch here. Which, granted, might be what was expected from the moment he signed. I just have a perspective that if you can't find a way to motivate the players and you see them play the way they did in these past two games and also that match against Mexico in the friendly, be it a friendly, it's still Mexico, your biggest rival. I thought that performance was abysmal as well. I don't know. I feel like it's warranted to ask the question of if this is the right guy to guide us into the World Cup, especially after seeing how hard people were on Berhalter, including myself. I'm here asking the same of Poch because I need to see results, because at the very least, bro, you think Berhalter gets better results here?
Oh, yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah, Berhalter so far is by a large margin the better coach with the USA.
So I don't think it's that out of the question to criticize Pochettino and at least say, is this really the guy? Because so far I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing it. And if they don't do anything there, then that tells me that they're going to commit to him. So be it. I just think what I've seen so far does warrant the question of, should we fire this guy?
I remember in 2013, Mexico nearly didn't make the World Cup.
Yeah.
Costa Rica were dancing over them, and Mexico make a drastic decision to get Miguel Herrera a year out from the World Cup, and it worked brilliantly. And I think the best way to change energy in a locker room is to change the coaches.
Who's the American equivalent of that? BJ Callahan? Kind of looks like him. Like, Miguel Herrera a little bit.
I just think, honestly, I think any American coach who really
an American
cares.
to guide the team would be dope, man.
Well, Jim Curtin's not coaching anymore because he just left Philadelphia. So
No? There's options. Wilfred Nancy?
It's a lot of options.
Wilfred Nancy's great at motivating players, man. The things I've seen him do with Columbus Crew is insane.
Yeah,
Some dope options, bro. If you really wanted to go down that route, I just think it does obviously make the team look very desperate, I guess. And I know
But
that
we
the
should
U.S.
be.
cares about appearance, man.
We should be desperate, and that's
That's what hiring Pochettino meant for me, man, because that's all name brand.
Yeah.
If you look at resume, I don't think he's been that impressive.
No, and you look at the USA's history of signing coaches, man, it's a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Like we'll let go of a coach and we'll wait a year to find a new one.
that's
Like
crazy.
it's so. None of it really makes any sense. We waited so long to get Pochettino. We fired Berhalter, and then we re-signed him.
Yeah, that was weird.
It was just it's mess after mess after mess when it comes to the USA Federation and signing coaches. So that's why I'm not putting any weight on them firing Poch, because I just think the USA Federation doesn't get coaching decisions right in general. So I think the right thing to do would be to find a new coach. But since the USA don't do the right thing, they're going to keep him.
I think that's how it's going to go, man. I fully agree. Folks, let us know your thoughts on Mexico, Panama, Mexico lifting their first Nations League title, the USA, Canada. If you have comments on that as well, leave them down below. Folks, the Nations League, CONCACAF Nations League has come to a close, and I guess now we have to look forward to the Gold Cup in the summer, be it during the Club World Cup as well. That's going to be a mess.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot. I mean, we'll probably just focus on Club World Cup mainly, right?
I guess.
I wonder.
I don't know, man.
I think since it's a FIFA tournament, the players will have to prioritize the Club World Cup.
Yeah, I think so.
So I don't think the USA, Mexico, or them would be able to get the players who are in the Club World Cup to play at the Gold Cup.
Yeah, we would see some crazy rosters, man.
Yeah.
Some crazy rosters. Folks, let us know your reaction down below to all the matches that happened this past week. We'll talk to you guys very soon. Peace.